Good evening and happy Independence Day, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, feds and degenerates, cuckolds of all ages, you're locked into Miles Culture Plate. And every Independence Day, I like to do a reading of the document. The reason we celebrate today, the reason why you might be able to hear the fireworks outside my house. A lot of people get together and, they like to call this day the 4th of July. Um, they like to light off Chinese imported explosives and fly imported flags in the dark, decorate their house in flags and red, white, and blue. And it's all good, but I always feel like it's important to remember the reason for the season, so to speak. There are a lot of people who take the time every Christmas or Easter to attend church. They feel like it's important to understand the reason for the season, so to speak. I feel that way about today. We had our founding fathers who were willing to spill blood, who were willing to sever the ties that bind, who were willing to do whatever it took to regain the freedom that they felt they had lost. They had moved from Europe to the New World for a promise of prosperity, a new beginning, the idea of settling west, right? The idea of forging something new. And when the King of England decided, no, I'm not ready to let a new culture form. I want them under my thumb. Well, this is what they had to say about it. So let's remember the reason for the season and read the Declaration of Independence. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Go ahead and bring this up. And I will read it aloud here. In Congress, July 4th, 1776. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes that impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces the design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter the former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. All right, I'm going to pause right there for just a moment to recognize over in the chat, Tim Pulls Game Music, happy Treason Day. And Demon's Wrath, happy Independence Day, brethren. Yes, happy Independence Day to all of y'all. Thank you for tuning in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and flip this over to the text document now. And we're going to read the facts submitted to a candid world about the King of England on July 4th, 1776. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent shall be obtained, and when so suspended, he is utterly neglected to attend to them. Does that sound a little bit like our border right now, folks? Does that sound a little bit like the Texas governor having to push back on the federal government to maintain control of its own border? Anyway, sorry. He has refused to pass laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purposes of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. Sounds a little bit like executive orders, right? He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the condition of appropriations of new lands. New appropriations of lands, excuse me. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He's erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Thank you, IRS. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Thank you, Patriot Act. Thank you, FISA courts. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Ladies and gentlemen, all of the UN, stuff, right? All of the climate change treaties we've signed, right? You have the President of the United States in the debate against Donald Trump saying, no, we signed an agreement with NATO. There's an attack on one, there's an attack on us all. Okay, well, yeah, sure. Quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. What is the modern police state, if not a heavily armed military? For protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. Qualified immunity, folks. Cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. No, just regulating trade in the form of free trade agreements so that we have to trade with slave nations that undercut the bread we grow. Imposing taxes on us without our consent. See the 16th Amendment. Depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Again, thank you, Patriot Act. Transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Well, there's been a few suspensions of habeas corpus. We got apocryphal world records in the chat. Cheers and welcome. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for instituting the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens whenever you see these politicians and media pundits going on and on and on about our quote unquote democracy. We are a republic. And every time they tell you we are a democracy, they are trying to fundamentally alter our form of government. They are socialists, trying to impose their will on a capitalist country. For suspending our legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. Yeah. See, the federal government versus the 10th Amendment and our state's ability to make its own laws. The rapid abuses of the Commerce Clause to just determine that the federal government has superiority in all matters. That's where that is today. He's advocated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. Again, see the border issues in Texas. He's plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Well, if you live in East Palestine, Ohio, you kind of get this point. Wow, that was really loud and really close to my house. I might have to check for damage after that one. Did you all hear that? He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. Ladies and gentlemen, our executive branch is flying immigrants into our country. Hey, we got Sangalan 86 in the chat. Welcome. Good seeing you out there. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. Again. Now, there's not really a big parallel here. But the failures of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the failures of diplomacy of the current administration to negotiate for the release of captive prisoners and instead trying to negotiate the release of basketball stars. Yeah, constrained our fellow citizens taken captive. He's excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an indistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Now, again, I'm not comparing Native Americans and the barbarity that some settlers may have felt in the 18th century here. But all of the knife attacks, the rapes, the immigrants are pushing on to the West right now is a form of barbarism. It's a form of savage warfare. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. Subject matter jurisdiction. Anyway, sorry, I had to do it. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, but in peace friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do, and for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the honor of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Ladies and gentlemen, those were the words that birthed everything we live under, everything around us, the spirit of the togetherness of the mankind in the country of the United States of America. It all started with that blood oath there at the end. Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And look, we get into disagreements. We stand a nation divided, right? Divided by race, divided by gender, divided by political alignment. all the ways in which our mainstream media, our government, corporations, the elites who are above all of them, would like to see us filled with rage and hatred and blame toward each other. But ultimately, if we're all willing to just say no. Look, the founding fathers, those 13 little colonies, had empires against them. And when it wasn't an empire that was firing cannons and muskets and ships, they were still having to settle in a country that was still young enough where they were learning how the climate was, how easy it was to grow certain foods, right? It's not like today where you just go down to the grocery store and get some food. No. No. 1776 was a cold year. But these people were willing to put their differences aside. Now, granted, there were some people who weren't. There were some people who were so loyal to the British crown that, we had our own forms of traitors, our own forms of treason within our colonies. But for the most part, the uphill battle that these men had to face, the cold winters, the food shortages, they overcame their disagreements, they overcame their differences, and were able to defeat the British Empire. If you sit and think about all the Commonwealth countries on this planet, all the countries in which the British Empire have occupied, we were the one that said no thank you. We were the ones that were unified. We were the ones who had enough spirit and enough divine providence, as the document says, to be able to make the kind of sacrifices necessary to guide ourselves into something new and say, we don't want a monarchy here. Ladies and gentlemen, these men gave you a republic if you can keep it. And as we sit here in an election year, Parker for World Record says the Carolinas, yeah. As we sit here in an election year, everyone and their grandmother is going to tell you that this is the most important election of your lives, right? They say it every election. This election is no different. But let's face it, for every step forward we make in restoring this country to its once greatness, we lose another 2 steps behind us. But that's growth. As long as we maintain this spirit, and this is why I do this every year, this is why I read this document every year, as long as we maintain the spirit of independence, when my family members say Happy 4th of July, I say, nay, Happy Independence Day. When my coworkers say Happy 4th of July, I say, nay, Happy Independence Day. I make it very clear that what I am celebrating is the freedom. Thomas Jefferson built an amazing network. Catherine the Great, India and the Middle East, Europe. Yeah, we had allies. Yeah. Yeah. They were fighting for the crown in the Carolinas. Yeah. But ultimately, you know, I was also asked on my last broadcast yesterday. People said I should read the Bill of Rights as well. I'm not opposed to it. What the hell? Well, this is kind of funny. The National Archives website. Oh, here we go. Transcript. There we go. There's the transcript. Oh my God. It had a summary, and it was like, oh God, this is a horrible fucking summary. No, okay, here we go. Let's do it. Let's do the Bill of Rights. Why don't we? All right. Because yeah, it's important to remember. Now, again, the Bill of Rights was December 1791, and I definitely, I'm gonna try to remember this September to at least make a mention of Constitution Day. I do like to celebrate it as well, but Independence Day is far more important, right? It was the reason to pick up guns. It wasn't the birth of the nation. It was the death of an alliance. All right, so let's do this. Bill of Rights. Amendment 1. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Amendment 2. Well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Amendment 3. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Amendment 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized. Amendment 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Amendment 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and the cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Amendment 7. In suits of common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of a trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Here's my two favorite ones here. Amendment 9. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you were to ask me, I think this is the right most infringed by our government. And yet, this is also the thing that they're using to justify the right to abortion. They kind of mishmash this up with the 14th Amendment and say, hey, boom, it's a right. Amendment 10, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, aka the federal government, not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, or reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So if it's not in the Constitution, it's not a federal government power, and therefore shall be enjoyed by your state government or the people themselves, not the federal government. So these are the 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights that our founding fathers, just 15 years after signing the Declaration of Independence, decided, hey, these need to be added as rights of the people to be free of their government. My, how far we've come. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for me tonight. This wasn't going to be a long stream. I wanted to do my annual reading of the Declaration of Independence. Excuse me. I'm going to do my annual reading of the Declaration of Independence and try to reinvigorate some of that 1776 spirit, at least here on Rumble, YouTube, and X for a moment. Hopefully, you folks are enjoying your holiday. You're enjoying the fireworks and the alcohol and barbecue and all of the great things that make America America on its holidays. But most importantly, I hope you're enjoying some form of family and togetherness. And if you're not, well, consider this part of it, because, I may not know a lot of you personally, but I have come to find comfort in those of you that come here and at least say hi to me. Pocket for World Records, Sanglant, Temples, Gay Music, Demon's Wrath, those of you in the chat, and anyone else who happens to be tuning in. I do find comfort knowing that there are other people out there who, seek little communities on the internet, because sometimes, the communities we've built around our home don't believe in the kind of things that the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights have taught us are important. But they still deserve freedom as well. And on that note, thank you, everybody. Please hit that like button if you haven't yet. Once again, I'll catch you all Saturday, 6 p.m. Central, same bat time, same bat channel as usual. Till then, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Outlast the haters. Don't get any on you. And if you do, rub that shit in real good. Happy Independence Day, everybody. Good night.